On the 12th of October 2018, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 released, and with it, one of, if not the most content-packed launches for zombies. Being in the community at this time felt amazing, as myself and many others either played the game, or watched our favourite streamers play the game in what seemed to be one of the most successful and praised launches in zombies history. But that wouldn't last for long. Public opinion promptly shifted, I would say around the 1 month mark. Suddenly, new features were now being criticised, some of which were praised only weeks before. Subjective turned to objective, enjoying the game became a punchline for many, and a large portion simply lost interest. I want to take some time today to discuss why I think this happened, the problems with the criticism and the debate, and some issues that are just generally plaguing the community as a whole. I hope you'll join me today as I share a defense of Black Ops 4 Zombies. There are so many different things I have to discuss, but what better place to start than the beginning, right? As I've already said, Black Ops 4 was launched on the 12th of October 2018 and was likely one of the most highly anticipated games in the series, at least in regards to zombies. Personally, I didn't buy the game until December, but I was still as excited as everyone else. From day one, I watched YouTubers and streamers play the game and share their thoughts. One phrase I heard many times from bigger and smaller streamers, and even just the general community, was that this was the best launch experience for zombies to date. This obviously contradicts with what people in the modern year have to say about the game, the launch included. As the game's life cycle continued, more and more criticism was formed, and by December, Black Ops 4 was no longer the best in the series, but had become one of the worst. Blue screens were one problem which plagued the game during this period, but I'll discuss this later. This was the turning point. Public opinion shifted, especially upon the release of the first DLC map, Dead of the Night. This map received no marketing whatsoever until 12 hours before release. This was obviously going to be a detriment to the hype surrounding the game, so much so that by the time the next DLC released, no one had anything else to say. Well, more specifically, no one had anything new to say, at least in regards to criticism. Whenever something new released, it was met with people criticising the same points over and over again. Points which weren't horrendous issues, but rather core mechanics of the game. Many lost interest in the game as a result of a simple disinterest, and the majority of those who did enjoy it hid, as this was about the stage where enjoying the game was no longer welcome. And so, history repeated itself with the same points being made over and over again until the release of Tag the Totem, and along with it, the end of BO4's life cycle. Naturally, this also brought about an end to the constant repetitive and incessant drivel that many members of the community insisted on spreading at every chance for every discussion. Nah, I'm just playing. To this day, people still insist on shitting on Black Ops 4 and shitting on people who play Black Ops 4, whether or not it was provoked or even related to the discussion at hand. Discussing Black Ops Cold War? Yeah, Black Ops 4 was objectively bad. Discussing nostalgic memories from past entries from more than 5 years ago? Yeah, and Black Ops 4 was objectively bad. This was a mindset that ran rampant through the community, and with that being said, objective opinions don't exist. This is common knowledge to many. However, this simple fact does not appear to hold much water when discussing Black Ops 4. When you choose to discuss this game with someone, a lot of the time, the phrase objectively bad is used to describe many new features, otherwise known as things that cannot be objective. To organise this section, I'll be going over several new game mechanics in their own sections and covering why I think them to be good and, more importantly, subjective. One of the largest changes that were made with Black Ops 4 Zombies mode was the overhaul of the perk system. Rather than having random perk machines on each map, including Juggernog, Double Tap, Quick Revive and Speed Cola, we were instead made to select 4 perks in the Creator class system, excluding Juggernog, Double Tap, Speed Cola, and Quick Revive, while still technically in the game, operated much more differently than it did in the previous games. Many of these perks are considered crutch perks, and thus limit the variety and options a player has. So, what are the objective views against this? Number 1. It restricts players to 4 perks for the full game and does not allow change midway through. Number 2. Having all the perks on every map restricts variety between maps. The first point is simply illogical, as well as false for several reasons. For starters, in Black Ops 4, a perk was introduced called Secret Source. This perk allows the user to have any perk in the game placed into that perk slot at any time. This means that if you wanted to change perks mid-game, all you had to do was go to the Secret Source machine and roll for your desired perk. This is, in fact, much easier than the methods you would require in previous games. Not only would you be forced to take it down, you'd have to buy back every single other perk as well as the new one you want. Does that not seem fairly unpractical compared to the use of Secret Source whenever it's convenient or necessary? Furthermore, in previous games on solo, there was no changing perks, unless of course you wasted a slot on Quick Revive, which, Even if you did do, you had to waste a down just to get one perk. Isn't that a bit much? Isn't that a bit restrictive, one might say? This is why I believe the first argument against the perk system holds very little water, especially if you want to present it as a fact. If anything, BO4 allows much less restriction on perk choices, less restriction on mid-game perk changes, and has a much larger variety of perks in general, allowing for much more choice. Now, the second point of contention. Having all perks available on every map restricts map variety. This is a point that I personally don't feel is too significant, personally. Reason being, Black Ops 4 has what feels like to me one of the most unique and varied set of maps yet. Now that may well be because of the new story, but even so, to say perks take away from map variety when there are literally two stories going on with completely different vibes is a bit unfair. If you feel that perks significantly take away from the variety of the maps, then we'll simply have to disagree, because I feel the real variety is much more significant than what takes away from it. Another thing to consider is that, from my own personal experience, the majority of people making points like this against BO4 consider BO3 to be the best experience. So I apologise in advance, but I will likely be drawing a lot, and I mean a lot of comparisons to Black Ops 3 during this video, starting from right now. Throughout all the Treyarch Zombies games that use the old perk system, Black Ops 3 had the least variety. Besides Shadows of Evil, the Giant, and the lack of Electric Cherry in Zombies Chronicles, all maps have the same perks. On top of this, the only perk introduced throughout the entire season was Widow's Wine, which we received on launch. Even Black Ops 4 received 4 new perks throughout the season, as well as the onslaught of new perks at launch. Even the 2 maps with different perks don't even feel that varied either. If anything, it takes away from the map for me, as the only difference is less perk options. Finally, although all perks are available on all maps, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll use the same perks on each map. As a result of the wide variety of game modes, difficulty options, and maps in Black Ops 4, you will rarely use the same perk setup across maps, and you will rarely use the same perk setup as another person. These are the points I want to make about the perk system. Black Ops 4 took the system of specialists from Black Ops 3 and altered it slightly. Now, instead of having set specialists for each map that you have to do a quest to receive, you instead spawn in with a specialist selected in the Create a Class menu and level it up in-game to reach its maximum potential. The main argument I see against this is that it removes the progression of going through the quest to unlock the specialist. Here's why I disagree. As previously mentioned, the specialists need to be leveled up in-game from level 1 to level 3, with each level granting a new ability for the specialist. One major difference with Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4 specialists is that they cannot be abused to the same extent as those from Black Ops 3. Take the Ragnaroks from D in BO3 for example. On this map, high rounds are pretty simple, as you can slam the Ragnaroks once, shoot off a double-papped infinite damage wall weapon, and then slam the Rags again. Compare this to Black Ops 4, where every single use of the specialist not only reduces the meter to at least half full, but it also increases the charge time, making it so that not only can you not spam specialist, it also takes a longer time to reach the maximum level, sometimes longer than what it would take to complete a full specialist quest in Black Ops 3. This is why I don't feel specialists and spawns are much of a detriment to the game's progression, as there is still plenty of progression to go around. Another point I hear people making against Black Ops 4 is that there is too much of a setup on each map. This argument seems illogical from my perspective when it comes to people who say Black Ops 3 is the best. Grant me this time to explain. Very few maps in this game have setups as complicated as maps such as, say, Shadows of Evil, Origins, or Ground Quarry. These are maps that I consider to have long setups to the point that I simply don't enjoy them as they are too tedious for my personal liking. I would argue that the only map in this game comparable to Black Ops 3 is Dead of the Night. This map has a pack-a-punch process similar to the Reese with extra difficulty, as well as 2 wonder weapon upgrades to go through and parts for the silver bullets. While I find this map less tedious than something like, say, Origins, I can 100% understand why people won't enjoy this particular map. That being said, one other aspect I like of this overall game is that it has the greatest variety of simple and complex maps. Dead of the Night is obviously an example of a complex map, as stated, but consider the others. Ancient Evil is somewhat similar, perhaps a little less complex. 9 is an incredibly simple map. Hit the box, get pap and perks, that's about it. On Voyage of Despair, you hit the box for the Kraken, get pap and some weapon parts, and that's about it. These are a clear contrast to effectively all of Black Ops 3's maps, as well as a contrast to half the maps in this own game. This game has so much variety, there's an option for everyone, so I don't see why complaints arise in regards to where a map has too little or too much complexity. There's a perfect balance, perfect for everyone, at least the way I see it. This is one argument that I personally find quite frustrating whenever it rears its ugly head. At the game's launch, players had 150 health on normal difficulty. Many players found this to be too challenging and so brought it to Treyarch's attention. A change was swiftly made to give players 200 health instead of the original 150. Problem solved? Apparently not. To this day, I still see people endlessly commenting on how 200 HP on spawn is too easy. I don't even feel the need to dwell on this for too long, since the community themselves, who criticised the game for this point, have actually made my point for me. They simply did it a week after release, rather than 2 years after release like myself. Every Ether storyline map in this game is set in a location that has been explored before. That is the crux of this point. However, those who call these maps remasters are simply wrong, as it is a fact that these are not remasters. That's all I must say regarding the term remaster. Now, what is a remake? I would consider the Giant from Black Ops 3 a remake. Why? Because it is very similar to the original map with some very minor changes, excluding graphical updates. So what is a reimagining then? A reimagining is like a remake except with massive changes to the extent that a new word had to be created due to how vastly different the media is to the source material. Alpha, Omega, Blood of the Dead, Classified and Tag the Totem are reimaginings. These are maps that are so vastly different to their original counterpart, if you will, that they can barely be called the same map. I simply cannot comprehend the idea that someone plays Alpha Omega and feels like it's a remake of Nuketown in any way. I simply cannot comprehend the idea of anyone playing Tag the Totem and feeling like they're playing a remake of Call of the Dead in any way, and so on, so forth. Since many people like to compare this to Black Ops 3, let's discuss Black Ops 3 once again. If you truly, and I mean truly, do not want to call any Black Ops 4 Ether map original, then there are 4 original maps in Black Ops 4. Since many of the people who argue against Black Ops 4's unoriginality compare it to Black Ops 3, then surely this game must be packed full of original content, right? 4. It has 4 original maps, the exact same as Black Ops 4. So what argument is being made here again? There aren't as many zombies maps in history that are completely original as you might think. Most of World at War and Black Ops 1 zombies reused assets. But does that mean the maps aren't new and original? And again, Black Ops 3 has a lot of reused assets throughout its season. Once again, does that make these unoriginal maps? If there's one thing that you, as a viewer, take away from this video, let it be this. The entire concept of an opinion is that it is subjective. All of the above mechanics have been used by many people, well known or just your average man on the street, to claim that the game is objectively bad. Whether you do or don't agree with my points, what I have at the very least done is prove that every single one of these mechanics is subjective, not objective. Too many people nowadays are too proud to acknowledge differing opinions. It's everywhere you look, people being mocked and harassed for possessing the so-called wrong opinion. It seems that, in regards to zombies, a lot of these debates have begun sparking up again, and by the end of it, it's never usually about how good Black Ops 4 is, but rather, are you allowed to have that opinion? Is that opinion fact? Well, of course it's not fact, but neither is yours. It's an opinion. In one single tweet posted recently, almost all of these points were painted as objective. I won't share names, but I will put the tweet on screen now simply for context. The person in question is a big YouTuber, so a lot of you may already know who it is, but I still shan't show the handle. Even worse than that was a thread under another tweet I saw. A smaller zombies content creator shared his opinion of the ranking of all the zombies games, but he made one mistake. He accidentally enjoyed Black Ops 4 more than World at War and Black Ops 1. Shock horror. As a result of this, he received immense amounts of slack, which he did his best to counter and start a discussion, but most just ended in, "Your opinion is wrong though." No real debate as to why, it was just wrong. One individual in particular decided to debate whether opinions could be wrong, and his final stand in debate was just to compare this man, who simply shared his opinion on zombies games, to a fucking paedophile, a predator. To paraphrase him, "But isn't it a paedophile's opinion that children are attractive? Is that okay? Listen, for the love of God, listen to me. If you truly feel so attacked by someone having a different opinion to you that you feel it is appropriate and just to compare them to a paedophile, then I ask this of you. Grow a brainstem, grow up, and try your hardest to be a little less of a disgusting freak. This is the crux of my point." The debate very quickly stopped being a debate and instead turned into, "You are objectively wrong." People would say the mechanics were undeniably bad, someone would try to discuss it, and they would be promptly shut down. This community has always had problems with the sharing of opinions. But listen, opinions are subjective, and that is objective. This next section should be a lot shorter than the previous one, so don't stress. That previous section will have taken up the bulk of the video, as is one of the most frustrating aspects of this community as a whole, not just in regards to Black Ops 4. With that out of the way, I'd like to discuss some simple misconceptions people have about the game. If someone tries to use these as an argument, then it comes as a result of one of the following: a misunderstanding, ignorance, or just a blatant lie for the sake of it. With that being said, allow me to begin going over these one by one and explaining why they simply aren't true. The first is one that I can kind of understand what I mean, but it's never specific enough, so it just comes across as not having accurate knowledge about the game. A point I hear people bringing up far too frequently in regards to this game is that the new engine is bad. Let me make one point clear right off the bat. Black Ops 4 Zombies uses the exact same engine as Black Ops 3. The exact same. I've seen too many people claim that the engine change causes problems. It was understandable at launch, as the game was very unique compared to previous entries in the series, but now, 2 years after the fact, people still refer to this mythical Black Ops 4 engine, which simply doesn't exist. During this time, people have stated repeatedly that the engine doesn't exist, but it still keeps coming up. While I can't be sure, I'm assuming that when people use this term, what they really mean is the mechanics, the perk system, the health system, the specialist, effectively anything I discussed in the previous section. But alas, these do not come as a result of an engine change. In 2020, if you try to explain why you dislike Black Ops 4 by saying the engine is bad, without specifics, then it comes across as ignorance, as well as a lack of actual reasons. In regards to reimagined maps, specifically Alpha Omega, many people claim that Alpha Omega is a straight rip from Blackout and thus Treyarch are lazy. This is false. Alpha Omega was made before Blackout was made. What this means is that the Blackout Nuketown was ripped from Alpha Omega. To say it was lazy for Treyarch to just rip assets from something that simply did not exist at the time is hardly fair, would you not agree? Furthermore, there are actually a very large amount of differences to the Blackout Nuketown and Alpha Omega that they can barely be compared. Not only is the bunker completely different in regards to, well, everything, the layout and design of the upper area is completely different as well. For this reason, I think it's unfair to call Alpha Omega lazy, a rip, or just generally not a new experience. A slightly less common point, but one that still exists nonetheless, is that the choice to release Dead of Night as DLC 1 shows that Treyarch are incompetent with the way they handle their business and marketing. I mean, surely they must have realized that releasing Dead of Night as DLC 1 would cause problems, right? Correct, they 100% realized that. So then it begs the question, why wasn't it released at launch? The answer is simple, they couldn't. This is information that's been known for a while, but I'll go over it anyway. Due to problems that come with running a business, such as timing not working out in regards to actors, the map couldn't be released at launch. Surely they couldn't release an unfinished map at launch, correct? Correct again! So they pushed it back. Obviously it wasn't ideal, but it was necessary, and it really doesn't take away from the map as a whole, because it's still a lot of fun. As I mentioned at the start of this video, if you've watched any of the big zombie streamer playing this game at launch, you will have noticed that it was regarded as being one of, if not the best zombies games yet, particularly for a launch. And, as I mentioned at the start once again, public opinion did also begin to shift. What were once new, innovative and original ideas had become basically a scum stain on the zombies brand. So what changed? It's pretty difficult to say, to be honest. There were obviously problems at launch, but they were all fixed promptly, as well as more minor details being altered to the community's preference. A prime example of that is 200 HP. Many influencers, as well as just general members of the community, complained about 150 HP at launch and asked for a boost. But we're now in a situation where the same influencers and the same members of the community are saying that 200 HP isn't right either, and is actually a problem with the game, as I mentioned before. And the same people who agreed that 150 HP wasn't good have done a complete 180 and now say that it's bad. It can't be denied that there are many people who base their opinions on what others say, this being a prime example. Especially when the others are pushing the same subjective opinions as rock hard facts over and 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 over again for months on end, without fail. Public opinion shifted at the same time that influencers' opinions shifted. One other critique influencers had that was fixed was the frequent crashes at launch, just like Black Ops 3, except for some reason, very few people acknowledge the fixes to that. I'll go further into that soon, but here's how the situation can look from someone who played the game almost daily for about a year. When the average Zombies community member complains about issues in the game that no longer exist, it makes it feel like this individual hasn't played the game and is basing this off of what others have said. Very few people took the time to acknowledge the fixtures to the crashes, and so many still think it's a problem, as a result of seeing people they watch use it as an argument. A prime example of people having unimaginably fast change of opinions at a time of an influencer's change of opinion is Zombies in Spaceland from Infinite Warfare Zombies. Nowadays this is viewed as a map that is up to Treyarch standard, but when it released, nowhere near the same response. It wasn't Treyarch, so no one was interested in giving much of a chance other than to do the Easter egg. Now naturally it's not all because of influencers. I know it may come across that while listening to this particular section that I'm really going in on the influencers, but if you feel I've gone on too long about this, then feel free to watch the other sections again to dilute the views shared here. In conclusion, I think it's undeniable that some influencers, well, influenced. Both points I'm to make here will be very familiar if you've watched the full video up to this point, but I still feel it's necessary to elaborate on them a little bit further. For this final segment of the video, I'd like to elaborate on a few more moments throughout the game's life cycle that I simply struggle to understand the community's response to. One of the main criticisms that I hear being brought up constantly is that the game is incredibly unstable and prone to crashes. At launch, the game crashed a lot, just like a certain other Zombies game that is much more popular, that being Black Ops 3. As it stands now, crashing in Black Ops 4 Zombies is much rarer than crashing in Black Ops 3 Zombies. Black Ops 3 has a round cap, and every other Black Ops game besides Black Ops 3 and 4 contains countless high round errors, crashes and resets. Despite this, many people still want to claim that Black Ops 4 is unplayable, which, as it stands, is completely false. And on one final note, the community's cries for a HP boost. Everyone and their mum and dog and grandmother and children asked for a change to the standard health, so Treyarch did what they were asked to do and were met with complaints from the very same people who asked for the change. I don't know what that's about. To conclude, this video is not meant to make you change your opinion on Black Ops 4 Zombies. Some opinions may alter, but it is not the primary goal of this video. The primary goal of this video is to help you grow an understanding of what an opinion truly is, assuming you're one of the people who behaves in the manners described throughout this video, to make sure that you present fair criticism of the game, rather than simply stating information that is simply false, and of course, make up your own mind on the matter. Be respectful to others, be fair, and perhaps this community can get back on its feet without leaving anyone behind. As it stands, myself and many others no longer want anything to do with this community that we've been a part of for so long, simply because we aren't welcome for having the wrong opinion. If you watched this entire video, whether or not you agree, thank you for hearing me out and sticking about. I'll catch you later, and this has been my defense on Black Ops 4 Zombies.